Thank you very much, Chairman. Administrator Wheeler, to follow up on our questions about Marathon Petroleum meddling in the fuel efficiency rules, I'll save it for a QFR, but I'd also like to ask about how your lawyers are engaging with Marathon Petroleum lawyers in the context of the litigation between the 22 states and the Trump administration over the state fuel efficiency standards. I assume right now you have no information on that, so I'll make that a question for the record, if that's okay.
Yeah, I have no information on that, sir.
Okay, I'll ask you to look into it. With respect to the so-called secret science rule, I'd like to share a little bit of history that we've put together. If you don't mind, I'll read for a minute from something my office put together. In 1996, Christopher Horner, an R.J. Reynolds lobbyist, acknowledged that R.J. Reynolds had virtually no chance of stopping a secondhand smoke regulation unless the company was able to exercise what he called behind-the-scenes leadership in constructing what he called explicit procedural hurdles for EPA to follow in issuing scientific reports. And that original proposal tracked very closely your secret science proposal. In 1997, a Philip Morris memo listed the American Petroleum Institute and a Koch-backed front group as supporting that initiative. In 1998, a lobbying firm working for the tobacco industry branded this initiative the so-called secret science rule, the same term Scott Pruitt used when he rolled the program out in April of 2018. The Philip Morris Front Group Advancement of Sound Science Coalition advanced this initiative through the 1990s with fossil fuel company donors, including Amoco, Chevron, ExxonMobil, and Occidental Petroleum. This group was run by Steve Malloy, who was on Philip Morris's retainer through 2005, and then worked at a number of front groups funded by the Kochs, ExxonMobil, and Shell, including serving as Director of External Policy and Strategy at Murray Energy. Both Malloy and Christopher Horner worked on President Trump's transition team at EPA. So, Ann Malloy attended Scott Pruitt's announcement of the secret science proposal and declared that he'd been working on advancing it for 20 years. When you consider the rather sordid history of this proposal and the mischievous motivations of the people behind it, I come at it with a lot of skepticism, and I particularly worry because what is supposedly secret in all of this is people's individual health data, which obviously we want to keep secret, private. Doesn't mean you can't do science off it, but you don't want, because science was done on it, to have everybody lose the protection of their personal health records. So here's the problem. As we're trying to regulate COVID and come up with safety regulations to help with this pandemic, we're going to have to build regulations based on people's health records. Haven't you created something that will hobble our ability to respond to the coronavirus crisis by attacking science that is based on health records, unless you're willing to throw individual health records into the public in ways that Americans would not tolerate?
Senator, as you usually do, you packed a lot of information into your question. Let me see if I can try to answer the points that you raised. First of all, I was not aware of the link to the tobacco lobbying in the 90s. Is my understanding, and this regulation was originally proposed before I joined the agency in 2018, but it was my understanding that a lot of the regulation, the original regulation proposal, was based off of Congressman Lamar Smith's legislation that he introduced, I believe a couple of different Congresses here in the last 10 years or so. We received a lot of comments on the science transparency, which is the actual name of the regulation, science transparency regulation. We received, I want to say, close to 1 million comments. We went back out again at my direction to repropose and take additional comments because we want to make sure we get this right. And so we put out another notice and comment for this regulation. And we will, my goal is to get this right at the end of the day, but there are a number of safeguards in this. The administrator of the agency, and that's any administrator in the future as well, can allow any study to be used even if the information is withheld, the data is withheld. But as far as the personal information, the FDA works with science research all the time where they mask the personal identification data of the science, of the subjects of the science or research, and we can do that at EPA as well. We can follow the FDA's lead on how they mask the individual people that are referenced in these scientific reports. But when I started working at EPA in 1991, I worked on the Community Right to Know Act, implementing the TRI and the Pollution Prevention Act across the TSCA and TRI world. And I fundamentally believe the more information you put out to the American public, the more transparent we are with the basis for our regulations, the more acceptance will be with our regulations, and the better understood our regulations will be. So that's what's guiding me, is to try to get as much information out to the public, which is also why we went forward with our guidance document proposal, which we just issued this week, to make sure that all of our guidance documents are put out there for the public to see. I believe in transparency, and that is what's underlying all of my
that, of course, is a cynical industry ploy to prevent science from getting into the regulatory domain by playing on the desire for privacy about their own health records on the part of individual Americans. And I hope you negotiate that balance well, because I think that there's a very cynical play here by big interests who simply don't want the public to have public health science because it will reveal the dangers of their products or emissions. So they've put Americans into the middle, the privacy of American health records into the middle as a leverage point to try to protect their own pollution.
Senator, I asked.
My goal is
I'm going to go to the, Senator, your time's expired, and we have another member who's arrived for his first round of questioning, so I want to turn at this point to.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you to